The giant ships moved through the empty space between stars like sleeping giants waking up. They were so big that Earth's moon would look like a small rock next to them. Inside the largest ship, Admiral Vexthera stood looking at a screen that showed a blue and green planet far away. His three eyes stared at the beautiful world that hung in the darkness like a jewel. Finally, he said in a voice that sounded like wind through metal pipes, "After 3,000 years of waiting, we can go home." The planet on the screen was Earth, but the Admiral did not call it that. To him and his people, it was simply the seeded world, or our inheritance. Long ago, when their own planet was young and green, they had traveled to this distant world and planted the first seeds of life in its oceans. They had watched from far away as tiny creatures grew and changed over millions of years. But then their own star began to die. Their beautiful homeworld became cold and dark. Their people had to live in metal cities, floating in space, always moving, always searching for a new place to call home. And now, as their last ships carried the final survivors of their race, they remembered the world they had made so long ago. Science Officer Krellinax floated beside the Admiral, his many arms moving nervously. He was reading numbers and data from his instruments, and what he saw made him worried. "Admiral Krellinax said, his voice shaking a little, "I think there might be a problem with our information about this world." "What kind of problem, Admiral?" Vexthera asked, not looking away from the screen. "The air has too much oxygen. It's much more than any safe world should have. And the gravity. It is so strong it would crush most of our people if they tried to walk on the surface." The Admiral's middle eye turned to look at his science officer. "That cannot be right. Check your instruments again." Krellinax checked his numbers 3 times before speaking again. "Admiral, the gravity on this world is almost twice what our people can handle. The air would burn our lungs. And there are storms there that move faster than our fastest ships. The lightning from these storms carries enough power to destroy a small city." "How is this possible?" the Admiral asked. "Our records show this. Was supposed to be a garden world? Perfect for life." "It gets worse," Admiral Krellinax continued. "The planet is covered with creatures that kill and eat each other. The plants make poison. Insects can kill things much bigger than themselves. Even the water has tiny creatures in it that can make you sick. This is not a garden world, Admiral. This is what the Galactic Council calls a death world." "Admiral." Vexthera was quiet for a long time. Around him, the bridge of the massive ship hummed with quiet activity. Thousands of his people worked at their stations, preparing for what they thought would be a simple return to their rightful home. None of them knew yet that the world they were approaching was one of the most dangerous planets anyone had ever found. "What about the intelligent life?" the Admiral finally asked. "Our scouts reported that there were thinking creatures living there." Krellinax made several marks on his datapad before answering. "They call themselves humans, Admiral. They appear to be the result of evolution on this death world. They are not like us. They are not like any intelligent species we have ever met." "What do you mean?" "They are predators, Admiral. Their eyes face forward like hunters. Their teeth are made for tearing meat. Their bodies are built for chasing down other creatures and killing them. And somehow, they have learned to live on this terrible world. More than that, ... they seem to enjoy it." The Admiral looked back at the planet on his screen. It was so beautiful from far away, with its blue oceans and white clouds. But now he was beginning to understand that beauty could hide great danger. "Hey, show me what our scouts learned about these humans," he ordered. Krellinax pressed several buttons and the screen changed. Now it showed pictures and videos that their scouts had taken from far away. The Admiral saw strange creatures walking on 2 legs, with no fur or scales to protect them from their world's dangers. They looked soft and weak. But then the Admiral saw something that made his heart beat faster. He watched as these humans threw themselves from great heights with only thin cloth to slow their fall. He saw them ride on top of large, dangerous animals for fun. He watched them swim in waters filled with creatures that could eat them. And through it all, they seemed to be enjoying themselves. "They do these things for pleasure?" the Admiral asked, not believing what he saw. "Yes, Admiral. They call it recreation. They seem to enjoy putting themselves in danger. And Admiral, ... that there are billions of them on this world. all living on a planet that should have killed them long ago. The Admiral was quiet again. His military mind was beginning to see a problem he had not expected. His people were peaceful traders and builders. They had never fought a real war because they had never needed to. Other species always gave them what they wanted in trade, or simply moved away when the great ships appeared. But these humans, they lived on a world that tried to kill them every day. They had spent millions of years learning how to survive in conditions that would destroy most life in the galaxy. They were not just living on a death world. They had become death world creatures themselves. "How many ships do they have?" the Admiral asked. "Very few, Admiral. They have only just learned to leave their planet. Their technology is hundreds of years behind ours. They should not be able to fight us." Admiral Vexthera looked at the beautiful, terrible world on his screen. Something deep inside him whispered that this would not be as easy as they had planned, but his people were dying. Their ships were running out of supplies. They needed this world to survive. "Send the message," he ordered. "Tell them we have come to reclaim what is ours." The message went out from the alien ships at exactly noon, Earth time. Every radio, every television, every computer screen on the planet suddenly showed the same thing. A tall, thin creature with 3 eyes and gray skin appeared on every device. That could show pictures? "People of the third planet," the creature said in perfect English, then repeated the same words in Chinese, Spanish, Arabic, and hundreds of other languages. "We are the Zephyrian Collective. Long ago, we gave life to your world. We planted the first seeds that grew into all the creatures you see around you. We are your creators." Around the world, humans stopped what they were doing and stared at their screens. In New York City, people stood in Times Square looking up at the giant displays. In Tokyo, workers gathered around their phones. In small villages in Africa and South America, families crowded around their single radio. "Your world belongs to us," the alien continued. "We have returned to claim our inheritance. Do not be afraid. We will move you to a safe place where you can live in peace. You have 48 hours to prepare for relocation." Then the screens went black. For exactly 3 seconds, the world was completely quiet. Then everything exploded into noise. In the White House, President Martinez slammed her hand on the table. "Get me every world leader on the phone right now," she ordered, "and find out how big those ships are." In Moscow, General Petrov was already looking at satellite pictures of the alien ships. "Mother of God," he whispered. "Each one is the size of a city." In Beijing, Premier Qin was speaking rapidly to his advisors. "How many nuclear weapons do we have that can reach space?" he asked. But the most important conversation was happening in a small house in Ohio, where retired Marine Sergeant Tom Wilson was talking to his grandson. "Grandpa," 8-year-old Billy asked, "are the aliens really going to take us away?" Tom looked out the window at the sky, where he could see strange lights that had not been there that morning. He thought about all the wars he had fought. All the enemies he had faced, all the times people had told him to give up. "Billy," he said quietly, "let me tell you something about humans. We don't do what we're told, especially not by bullies." Within 6 hours, something happened that surprised even the humans themselves. Every country in the world, even the ones that had been fighting each other the day before, sent the same message back to the alien ships. The message was very short. It said simply, "No." Admiral Vexthera stared at the response on his screen. In 3,000 years of galactic travel, no species had ever said no to the collective. Most civilizations begged to be allowed to trade with them. Others simply ran away when the great ships appeared. But no one had ever just said no. "Perhaps they do not understand," suggested Communications Officer Drexfell. "Maybe we should explain more clearly what will happen if they refuse." "Yes," the Admiral agreed. "Show them our power, but gently. We do not want to hurt them unnecessarily." The Admiral chose a small island in the Pacific Ocean. It was uninhabited, just a tiny piece of rock and sand that no one lived on. One ship fired a single beam of energy at the island. In less than a second, the island was gone. Just empty water where land had been a moment before. The Admiral waited for the humans to surrender instead. Something else happened. Within 2 hours of the island's destruction, over 10 million humans had signed up to join their planet's military. Forces, Lines formed outside recruiting stations in every city. Old soldiers came out of retirement. Young people left their schools and jobs to learn how to fight in the Pentagon. General Sarah Hayes was looking at numbers that made no sense. "Sir," she reported to the Secretary of Defense, "we have more volunteers than we can possibly train. People are bringing their own weapons. Farmers are turning their tractors into armored vehicles. Scientists are calling us with ideas for new weapons." The Secretary of Defense, a calm man who had seen many crises, looked worried for the first time in years. "General, I've never seen anything like this. It's like the entire planet just declared war." He was right. But what the humans did not know was that they were being watched very carefully by collective scientists who were starting to understand something terrible. Science Officer Krelanax was sending report after report to Admiral Vexthera. Each report was more disturbing than the last. "Admiral," he said, during one emergency meeting, "we need to talk about these humans. They are not what we expected." "What do you mean?" the Admiral asked, though he was beginning to fear the answer. "Admiral, we have been studying their biology and their behavior. These creatures are unlike anything in our records. They are persistence hunters, Admiral. Do you understand what that means?" The Admiral's three eyes blinked slowly. "No. It means they chase their prey until it dies from exhaustion. They can run for hours without stopping. They can go days without sleep. They can survive injuries that would kill most galactic species. And Admiral... their planet made them this way." Grelanax brought up pictures on the main screen. "Look at this, Admiral. This human is climbing a mountain in a snowstorm. For fun, this one is swimming with creatures that could eat him. This one is jumping out of a flying machine with only a cloth parachute. They do these things because they enjoy the danger." The Admiral stared at the pictures. "This cannot be normal behavior." "Admiral, we analyzed their entertainment. Their stories and games are all about fighting and surviving. They practice war. For fun, they teach their children to fight by pretending it is a game. Their entire civilization is built around the idea that life is a battle that must be won." Another officer raised his hand. "Admiral, we intercepted some of their military communications. They are not planning to surrender. They are planning to fight us." "With what?" the Admiral asked. "Their technology is primitive." Admiral Krelanax said quietly, "I do not think technology is their primary weapon. I think they are their own weapon. And Admiral... there are 8 billion of them." The Admiral was quiet for a long time. Around him his officers waited nervously. Finally he spoke. "Begin the invasion," he ordered. "But be careful. I think we may have made a mistake." On Earth, humans were getting ready for war in their own special way. They were not just building weapons and training soldiers. They were doing something that no other species in the galaxy had ever done when faced with superior technology. They were getting excited. "Bring it on," said Marine Corporal Jennifer Santos as she cleaned her rifle. "Let's see what these gray boys are made of." The war was about to begin, and neither side was ready for what would happen next. The first alien ships landed on Earth 3 days after the message was sent. General Korthvin, the Collective's military commander, had chosen to land in what he thought would be easy targets, small cities with no major military bases, places where the primitive humans would give up quickly when they saw superior technology. The first landing site was a town in Kansas called Millfield.
Population
8,000 people. No army base, no important buildings, just farmers and shop owners. General Korthvan expected his soldiers to take control in less than an hour. What happened instead would be talked about in Alien. Military schools for the next 1,000 years. The alien ship landed in a cornfield outside Millfield just as the sun was coming up. Wearing their best armor and carrying energy weapons that could cut through steel. They expected to see scared humans running away. Instead, they found the entire town waiting for them. Farmer Joe Henderson stood in front of his neighbors, holding an old hunting rifle that his grandfather had given him. Behind him stood the whole population of Millfield: school teacher, the grocery store owner, the mechanic, the librarian, even old Mrs. Peterson, who was 85 years old and used a walking stick. "Morning," Joe said to the alien soldiers like he was greeting neighbors. "Nice ship you got there. Mind telling us what you're doing on my land?" The alien commander stepped forward. Through his translator, he said, "Human, you will surrender immediately. Resistance is useless. Our weapons are far beyond your technology." Scratched his chin and looked at the alien's shiny energy rifle. Then he looked back at his old hunting rifle. Then he smiled. "Well," Joe said, "I reckon we'll see about that." What the aliens did not know was that the people of Millfield had spent the last 3 days preparing. Every person in town had a job. The children had been sent to hide in the storm shelters, but not before they helped their parents set up surprises all around the landing zone. When the alien commander raised his weapon to show his power, Joe threw himself to the ground and shouted, "Now!" Suddenly, the cornfield exploded into chaos. The humans had turned their entire town into a trap. They had buried old farm equipment in the ground and connected it to car batteries. They had filled glass bottles with gasoline and farming chemicals. They had dug tunnels under the field and filled them with explosive fertilizer. The alien soldiers found themselves standing in the middle of a minefield. It's made from farm supplies. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was that the humans did not run away after setting off their traps. Instead, they charged forward, screaming and yelling and shooting their simple weapons at armored soldiers who should have been impossible to hurt. Alien soldier. Victor fired his energy weapon at a human running toward him. The beam hit the human in the shoulder and burned through his shirt. The human looked down at his wound, said that stings a bit, and kept running. He tackled Victor to the ground and began hitting him with a baseball bat. Another alien soldier watched in horror as an old human woman hit his teammate with her walking stick hard enough to crack his helmet. "Impossible," the alien commander whispered as he watched his advanced soldiers being beaten by farmers with simple tools. How are they still fighting? He did not understand that humans had spent millions of years learning to keep fighting even. When they were hurt, their bodies made chemicals that stopped pain when they were in danger. Their minds refused to give up even when logic said they should. But the real shock came when the aliens tried to retreat to their ship. The humans had been busy during the 3 days of preparation. A 12-year-old boy named Marcus had used his computer skills to hack into the alien ship's systems while it was landing. He had learned how to do this by playing video games where players had to break into enemy computers. When the alien soldiers tried to get back into their ship, the doors would not open. Marcus had locked them out. "Come on," he shouted from his hiding place. "I beat harder computer games than this." The Battle of Millfield lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 200 alien soldiers had been defeated by 8,000 humans armed with hunting rifles, farming tools, and pure stubbornness. Similar battles happened all over Earth. In Japan, office workers used their cars to ram alien vehicles. In Australia, people released poisonous snakes and spiders into alien camps. In Canada, humans led alien soldiers into forests where bears and wolves lived. But the most frightening reports came from the cities in New York. Humans had turned the subway tunnels into a maze of traps and ambushes alien soldiers would chase humans into the underground, only to find themselves lost in a network of tunnels that the humans knew perfectly. In London, people threw boiling tea at alien soldiers and apologized for the rudeness while doing it. In Moscow, humans used snow and ice to make alien equipment stop working, then attacked with tools they found in construction sites. Admiral Vexthera read the reports with growing horror. In 1 day of fighting, his forces had lost more soldiers than in the previous 100 years of peaceful exploration. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "They have no advanced weapons, no energy shields, no spaceships. Are they defeating us?" Science officer Krelanax had been studying human behavior during the battles. His report was even more frightening than the military losses. "Admiral," he said, "these humans are not fighting like any species we know. When we wound them, they keep fighting. When we destroy their weapons, they pick up new ones. When we surround them, they attack from directions we did not expect." But Admiral Krelanax continued, "The most disturbing thing is that they seem to be enjoying the fight. We recorded communications from human soldiers. They are laughing, Admiral. They are having fun." The Admiral stared at his science officer. "Fun? Yes, Admiral. One human soldier, after destroying 3 of our vehicles with explosives made from kitchen supplies, said, quote, "This is better than any action movie I ever saw." Another human, who fought for 6 hours with a broken arm, said, "I haven't had this much excitement since my last vacation." Admiral Vexthera felt something he had never experienced before: fear. Admiral Communications Officer Drexel interrupted. "We're receiving a message from the human military leaders." "Put it on the screen," the admiral ordered. A human woman in military uniform appeared on the screen. She had gray hair and kind eyes, but when she smiled, the admiral felt his heart stop beating. "Hello," she said cheerfully. "This is General Patricia Williams of the United Earth Defense Force. We just wanted to thank you for the most fun we've had in years. But now, the real military is coming. People you fought today were just civilians having a good time. Tonight, you get to meet our actual soldiers." The transmission ended. Admiral Vexthera looked around his bridge at his frightened officers. Outside the ship, the blue and green planet spun peacefully in space. But now he knew the truth about the beautiful world. It was not a garden. It was a fortress. And the creatures living on it were not farmers and builders. They were warriors who had been waiting their whole lives for a war worth fighting. 3 months after the first battles, Admiral Vexthera no longer looked like the confident leader who had arrived at Earth. His gray skin had turned pale, his 3 eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep, and his hands shook when he read the daily reports. The reports were all bad news. Admiral Communications Officer Drexel said quietly, "We have lost contact with Battle Group 7. "How many ships?" the admiral asked, though he already feared the answer. 12 ships, Admiral. All destroyed or captured." The admiral closed his eyes. Battle Group 7 had been sent to attack a human city called San Diego. The humans had somehow used their ocean to hide submarines that the collective sensors could not detect. When the alien ships came down to land, submarines had fired weapons that turned the ships into floating scrap metal. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was what happened to the surviving alien soldiers instead of killing them. The humans had taken them prisoner. And somehow, within days, those prisoners had begun teaching humans how to use collective technology. Admiral, Science Officer Krellanax entered the bridge, carrying a data pad that looked like it had been thrown against a wall several times. "I have more news from the intelligence division." "What now?" the admiral asked. "The humans have built copies of our weapons, Admiral, but they have changed them, made them ... different." Krellanax activated a holographic display that showed human soldiers carrying weapons that looked like collective energy rifles, but wrong somehow. They were bigger, louder, and covered with strange additions. "What did they do to them?" the admiral asked. "They made them more powerful, Admiral, but also more dangerous to use. A normal collective soldier would be afraid to fire these weapons because they might explode. But the humans do not seem to care about the danger." The hologram showed a human soldier firing one of the modified weapons. The energy beam was twice as bright as a normal collective rifle, and it melted through an alien tank like it was made of paper. But when the weapon finished firing, it was glowing red-hot and smoking. The human soldier looked at his smoking weapon, grinned, and said, "Cool. See what happens if we turn it up even more." "They are treating our technology like toys," Krellanax said sadly. "And somehow, their improvements work better than our original designs." Admiral Vexthera was about to respond when alarms began ringing throughout the ship. "Admiral," the navigation officer shouted, "we have multiple contacts approaching from the direction of the human homeworld." "It's possible," the admiral said. "Humans do not have space travel technology advanced enough to reach us here." The main screen flickered to life, showing the space around their fleet. What the admiral saw made his 3 hearts stop. Coming toward them were dozens of ships. But these were not collective ships. They were human ships, built from pieces of captured collective technology, but designed in a way that made no sense to alien minds. The human ships were covered with weapons. Not just a few weapons like normal warships, but weapons everywhere. On top, on the bottom, on the sides. Some of the weapons were obviously collective technology. Others looked like they had been built in human factories. Some looked like they had been made by welding together pieces of human cars and alien equipment. How did they build those so quickly? the Admiral whispered. His answer came from Captain Sarah Chen, whose face appeared on the main screen. She was standing on the bridge of the lead human ship, surrounded by a crew that included both humans and aliens who had switched sides to join the human military. "Hello, Admiral," Captain Chen said with a smile that did not reach her eyes.
Thank
"You for all the technology you gave us? We have been very busy learning how to use it." Behind Captain Chen, the Admiral could see human technicians working alongside alien prisoners who seemed happy to be there. They were all wearing the same uniform and working together like they had been teammates for years. "How," the Admiral asked, "how did you convince our people to work with you?" "We offered them something your civilization never gave them," Captain Chen replied. "We offered them the chance to be part of something exciting. Most of your soldiers were bored, Admiral. They had spent their whole lives taking orders and following rules. We showed them what it feels like to fight for something they believe." The Admiral looked more closely at the alien faces on the human ship. They were not prisoners, or volunteers, and they looked happier than most collective citizens had looked in centuries. "What do you want?" the Admiral asked. "We want you to leave our planet alone," Captain Chen said. "But since you will not do that willingly, we are going to make you leave. You cannot defeat the entire collective fleet with a few stolen ships," the Admiral said. Though his voice shook with uncertainty, Captain Chen's smile became wider and more frightening. "Admiral, what you are looking at is not our entire fleet. This is just the ships we built on Monday. We have been very busy." The space around the collective fleet suddenly filled with more human ships, hundreds of them. Asteroids, from the shadows of planets, from empty space, where the collective sensors had detected nothing. But the most shocking thing was not the number of ships. It was the variety. Every human ship looked different. Some were fast and small, built for hit-and-run attacks. Others were massive and covered with armor made from alien hull metal. Some looked like they had been built by engineers. Others looked like they had been designed by artists or madmen. Admiral Krellenax whispered, "How did they build so many ships without us detecting them?" The answer came from an alien voice on the human communication channel. It was Commander Zelton, who had been captured 3 weeks earlier during a raid on a human city. Admiral Zelton said, "You need to surrender now. These humans are not like us. We build one ship. We follow the same design every time. When humans build ships, every single one is different. They never stop experimenting, never stop trying new ideas." "Zelton," the Admiral said, "you are a prisoner. Why are you helping them?" Admiral Zelton replied, "I am not a prisoner. I am a volunteer. Do you know what these humans did when they captured me? They asked me if I wanted to help design better weapons. No one in the collective had ever asked me what I thought about anything. These humans listened to new ideas, even from their enemies." Captain Chen spoke again. "Admiral, we do not want to destroy your fleet. Your people can be valuable allies if they choose to be, but we will not allow you to threaten our world. So, I am going to give you the same choice you gave us." "What choice is that?" the Admiral asked. "Surrender or be relocated," Captain Chen said. "We have found several nice planets where your people can live in peace. Planets that are much safer than Earth. You have 24 hours to decide." The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Vexera staring at the screen. Around him, his officers waited for orders. But for the first time in his long military career, the Admiral did not know what to do. Outside the ship, the human fleet waited patiently. They were not threatening or posturing. They were just ... There are hundreds of ships built by a species that had learned spaceflight by stealing alien technology and improving it with ideas no sane engineer would try. Admiral Vexthera looked at his tactical display. His fleet was outnumbered 3-1 by ships that should not exist, operated by creatures who should have died on their death world, led by beings who had somehow convinced half of his own people to switch sides. For the first time since arriving at Earth, Admiral Vexthera began to consider the possibility that the collective had made a terrible mistake. The tide of war had turned, and the Deathworlders were no longer defending. They were hunting. Admiral Vexthera had 24 hours to make his decision, but he knew within 24 minutes what he had to do. He could surrender his fleet to these impossible humans, or he could fight a war he was no longer sure he could win. He chose to fight. The final battle began when the collective fleet tried to retreat to their home system. They thought they could escape, regroup, and return with a larger force. But Admiral Vexthera had forgotten one important thing about humans. They did not fight fair. The human fleet did not try to stop the collective ships from leaving. Instead, they followed them. Captain Sarah Chen had learned something important during the past 3 months of war. She had learned that running away only worked if your enemy could not catch you, and humans had become very good at catching things that tried to run away. The chase across the galaxy lasted 2 weeks. Every time the collective fleet stopped to refuel or repair their ships, human ships appeared as if from nowhere. Small, fast ships that attacked quickly and disappeared before the aliens could fight back. But the humans were not just attacking. They were learning. Every collective base they found, they studied. Every alien ship they captured, they took apart to see how it worked. Every alien prisoner they took, they asked questions. By the time the collective fleet reached their home system, the humans knew everything about their enemy. They knew how alien ships were built, how alien weapons worked, and most importantly, Zephyr Prime. It was a beautiful place with 3 planets that had been turned into garden worlds over thousands of years. Billions of collective citizens lived there in peaceful cities, protected by space stations and defense platforms that had never been tested in real war. Admiral Cistera thought his people would be safe behind their defenses. He was wrong. Human fleet that arrived at Zephyr Prime was not the same small force that had chased him across space. Somehow, during the 2-week journey, it had grown. There were now thousands of human ships, and many of them were bigger than anything the collective had ever built. But the most shocking thing was not the size of the human fleet. It was who was flying the ships. Admiral, communications officer, Drexel said, his voice shaking. We are receiving surrender demands from the human fleet. But Admiral ... they are not just humans anymore. The main screen showed Captain Chen standing on the bridge of her flagship. But she was not alone. Behind her stood representatives from dozens of alien species. Creatures that the collective had conquered or enslaved over the centuries were now wearing human uniforms and working as part of the human fleet. Greetings, Admiral Vexthera, Captain Chen said. I want you to meet some friends of ours. It seems that when we told other species about your plans to relocate entire populations, many of them remembered when you did the same thing to them. The Admiral stared at the screen in horror. There were Krill warriors who had been forced from their homeworld 200 years ago, or were Nexus traders who had been enslaved when they refused to give up their trading routes. How did you find them all? The Admiral asked. We did not find them, Captain Chen replied. They found us. It turns out that humans are not the only species that does not like being told what to do. When word spread that someone was finally fighting back against the collective, volunteers started showing up. Behind Captain Chen, a massive Krill warrior stepped forward. His species was known for being peaceful farmers. No, but this one was wearing human military armor and carrying weapons that looked like they could destroy a small moon. Admiral Vexthera, the Krill said in a voice like distant thunder, my people have been waiting 300 years for someone brave enough to stand up to your empire. The humans taught us something we had forgotten. They taught us how to say no. The Admiral looked at his tactical display. Collective home fleet was strong, but they were outnumbered 10-1 by an alliance of species that had somehow learned to work together under human leadership. What do you want? Admiral Vexthera asked, though he already knew the answer. We want the collective to stop taking things that do not belong to them, Captain Chen said. We want you to free all the species you have enslaved or relocated. We want you to promise that you will never again threaten a peaceful world. And if we refuse? The Admiral asked. Captain Chen smiled, but it was not a happy smile. Then, we will do to your worlds what you plan to do to ours. We will relocate you to a nice, safe place where you cannot hurt anyone. The final battle of Zephyr Prime lasted 3 days. It was unlike any space battle that had ever been fought before because it was not really one battle. It was thousands of small battles happening all at once. The humans had learned that the best way to fight an enemy was superior. Technology was to never fight them the way they expected. So instead of having one big battle between 2 fleets, they broke their forces. into small groups that attacked from every direction at once. Collective defenders found themselves fighting human ships that had been hidden inside asteroids. They faced alien allies who knew collective tactics better than the collective did. They fought against weapons that had been built by combining human creativity with alien technology in ways that no engineer had ever imagined. But the moment that ended the war happened when Admiral Vexara realized his own people were starting to surrender without being asked. Collective soldiers and ship crews were laying down their weapons and asking to join the Human Alliance. It had seen what life was like on human ships, where every person was valued and every idea was heard. They wanted to be part of something that felt alive and exciting, instead of the cold, ordered existence they had known under the collective. On the third day of battle, Admiral Vextera sat alone on his command bridge. Most of his officers had already surrendered. His fleet was destroyed. His homeworlds were surrounded by human ships that had somehow convinced half his population to switch sides. Captain Chen appeared on his screen one last time. "Admiral," she said, and her voice was not angry anymore. It was sad. "This war is over. Your people are asking for peace. Will you give it to them?" Admiral Vextera looked around his empty bridge. Through the windows he could see human ships, moving carefully through the debris of the battle, rescuing survivors from both sides. He watched human medics working to save the lives of collective soldiers who had been trying to kill them just hours before. Captain Chen replied, "How do you forgive your enemies so quickly? Do you turn them into friends?" Captain Chen was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was gentle. "Admiral, humans learned a long time ago that the best way to end a war is to make it so your enemy does not want to fight anymore. We do not want to destroy the collective. We want to make it better." Admiral Vexera closed his three eyes and made his decision. "The collective surrenders," he said. "We accept your terms." 5 years later, Admiral Vexera stood on the bridge of a human ship, wearing a uniform that bore the symbols of both his old fleet and his new alliance. He was no longer an admiral of the collective. He was now a coordinator in the Galactic Defense Coalition, an organization that had grown from Captain Chen's small fleet into the largest peaceful alliance in known space. The galaxy had changed. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years were now working together. Worlds that had been strip-mined by the collective were being restored. And everywhere, the human philosophy of everyone gets a voice was spreading. But the most important change was that no species would ever again have to face the choice between surrender and extinction. Because now, when bullies appeared in the galaxy, there was always someone ready to stand up and say the most powerful word in any language: no. The Deathworlders had not just won a war. They had changed the galaxy forever. And they had done it the same way they did everything else, by refusing to give up, and by making friends with anyone brave enough to stand beside them. The old human ship drifted through the dark space near Kepler Junction. Her name was Steadfast, and she looked like she had seen better days. The metal hull was covered with patches and scars from old battles. Paint had worn off in many places, showing the bare metal underneath. Dents and scrapes marked every surface. Anyone looking at her would think she was ready for the scrapyard. Captain Elena Vasquez sat in her command chair on the bridge. She was 55 years old with gray hair and lines around her eyes. Those lines came from years of squinting at star charts and enemy ships. Her uniform was clean but old, like everything else on the ship. She watched the scanner screen with calm eyes. The bridge was small and cramped. The walls were lined with old equipment that hummed and beeped softly. Everything worked, but nothing looked new or fancy. The crew moved around their stations with easy practice. They had been together for many years. Chief Engineer Martinez stood near the back of the bridge. He was a big man with grease under his fingernails and a smile that never quite left his face. He knew every bolt and wire on the ship. Next to him, Weapons Officer Chen checked her controls for the third time in 10 minutes. She was young, but had steady hands and sharp eyes. The scanner made a soft beeping sound. Lieutenant Park at the sensor station looked up. Captain, we have a ship approaching. Big one. Looks like a Zephyrian cruiser. Captain Vasquez nodded. Put it on screen. The main viewer lit up with the image of a massive warship. It was beautiful in a deadly way. The hull was smooth and white, with blue lights running along its sides. Weapon ports gleamed like jewels. Everything about it said power and technology. It was at least 3 times the size of the Steadfast. Impressive, Martinez said quietly. They sure like their ships pretty. Pretty ships make pretty targets. Chen replied without looking up from her weapons console. The communication system crackled to life. A deep voice filled the bridge. Primitive human vessel. This is Commander Dexler of the Imperial Cruiser. Dominant Pride. You will prepare to be boarded for inspection. Captain Vasquez raised an eyebrow. She pressed the communication button. This is Captain Vasquez of the Earth ship Steadfast. We are on a peaceful mission through neutral space. We request safe passage. Laughter came through the speakers. It was not friendly laughter. Safe passage? Look at your pathetic ship, human. You fly in a piece of junk that should have been scrapped decades ago. We will inspect your cargo and decide if you deserve to continue. More voices joined the laughter. The Zephyrian bridge crew was clearly having fun. Captain Vasquez kept her face calm, but her crew exchanged looks. They had heard this kind of talk before. On the main screen, they could see the alien ship more clearly now. It was a thing of beauty and terror. Weapon systems covered its hull like scales on a snake. Shield generators glowed with blue energy. The ship looked like it could destroy a small planet, Captain Lieutenant Park said quietly. I'm picking up multiple communication signals. They're broadcasting on open channels. Other ships are listening. Commander Dexler's voice came again, louder and more arrogant. Attention all vessels in this sector. Come witness the encounter between superior Zephyrian technology and primitive human scrap. You will see why the old races rule the galaxy, while newcomers like humans crawl through space in their rust buckets. More ships appeared on the scanner. They came to watch the show. Captain Vasquez could see them gathering at a safe distance. Word was spreading fast through subspace. The great Zephyrian commander was going to teach the humans a lesson. Look at that pathetic excuse for a warship. Commander Thexala continued his broadcast. It's 40 years old if it's a day. Probably held together with wire and prayer. The humans. Think they can fly through our territory in this floating junk pile? His crew laughed again. The sound echoed through the Steadfast's bridge. Captain Vasquez turned to look at her officers. Martinez was shaking his head with amusement. Chen was running system checks with a small smile on her face. Lieutenant Park was tracking all the ships that had come to watch. They seemed very confident. Captain Vasquez said calmly. Youth often is, Martinez replied. They've never seen what happens when someone pushes too hard. The Zephyrian commander's voice grew more demanding. Human captain, you will cut your engines and prepare to be boarded. We will search your ship from top to bottom. Any resistance will be met with force. Your primitive weapons are no match for our advanced systems. Captain Vasquez looked at the beautiful alien ship on her screen. She thought about all the battles the Steadfast had fought, all the enemies they had faced, all the times people had looked at their old ship and laughed. She thought about the scars on her hull and what each one meant. She pressed the communication button again. Commander Dexler, I repeat our request for safe passage. We have no hostile intent. We simply wish to continue our journey. Safe passage denied, the alien commander shouted. You will submit to our authority or face the consequences. Your rust bucket is no match for the pride of the Zephyrian fleet. The watching ships moved closer. They wanted a good view of what would happen next. The galaxy loved to see the new species put in their place. Humans were still newcomers, and newcomers needed to learn respect. Captain Vasquez sat back in her chair. She looked at her crew one more time. They were ready. They had always been ready. The Steadfast might look old and worn, but she had survived things that would have destroyed prettier ships. Commander the Xolar, she said into the communicator, her voice steady and calm. We have places to be. Commander the Xolar stood on his bridge and stared at the human ship on his screen. The ugly old vessel just sat there in space like it owned the place. His anger grew with each passing second. How dare these newcomers refuse his commands? Did they not understand who they were dealing with? The Zephyrian commander was young for his rank. His scales were bright blue and green, showing his noble birth. His uniform was perfect, with medals that caught the light from the bridge displays. He had never lost a battle, but then again, he had never fought a real one either.
Oh.
Most enemies surrendered when they saw his beautiful ship. Sir, his weapons officer said, the human ship is not moving. They ignore our commands. I can see. That the Xolar snapped. He turned to face his crew. They were all young and proud, just like him. They wore their uniforms with the same confidence. They believed in their ship and their technology. Why should they not? The dominant Pride was the newest ship in the fleet. Everything about it was perfect. Open a channel to all ships in the area, the Xolar ordered. Let everyone hear what happens to those who do not respect Zephyrian authority. The communication officer nodded. Open, sir. Broadcasting on all frequencies, the Xolar smiled. This would be a good lesson for everyone watching. The galaxy needed to know that the old races still ruled space. These humans were new and weak. They needed to learn their place. Attention, all vessels, he spoke into the communicator. You are about to witness the power of Zephyrian technology. This human ship dares to refuse our lawful commands. They fly through our territory in their ancient rust bucket, as if they belong here. He could see more ships gathering on his scanner. Word was spreading fast. Ships came from all directions to watch the show. Some were merchants, others were military vessels from different races. All of them wanted to see what would happen. On the human ship, Captain Vasquez watched the alien commander with calm eyes. She had seen his type before, young, proud, and dangerous because they had never learned caution. She turned to Martinez. Chief, how are our systems? Martinez grinned. Running like a dream, Captain. Old girl's ready for whatever comes. Chen looked up from her weapons console. All systems green, Captain. Should I start the warm-up sequence? Not yet, Vasquez said quietly. Let's see how far they want to push this. Lieutenant Park was tracking all the ships that had come to watch. Captain, we have 12 vessels in scanning range now. More coming. All the time. Vasquez nodded. She understood what was happening. The young alien commander was putting on a show. He wanted to prove his power in front of an audience. It made him more dangerous, but also more predictable. Commander the Xolar continued his broadcast. Look at this pathetic human vessel. Tick. Years old, maybe more. Patches, covering patches. It probably breaks down twice a week, and yet they think they can challenge the might of the Zephyrian Empire. His crew laughed. The sound carried across the communication channels to all the watching ships. Some of the other vessels sent their own messages of support. Everyone enjoyed seeing the newcomers put in their place. Humans are a young race, the Xolar went on. They have been in space for less than a century. They know nothing of war, nothing of power. Their ships are built by amateurs who copy the designs of their betters. He was getting excited now. The watching ships were encouraging him. Messages of support came from across the sector. Everyone wanted to see the human ship humbled. There. Weapons are primitive projectile systems, he announced. Crude metal slugs fired by chemical explosives. They have no understanding of energy weapons or quantum shields. They are children playing with toys. On the Steadfast, Chen smiled at that comment. Chemical explosives, she said quietly. If only he knew. Martinez chuckled. Should we tell him about the magnetic acceleration system? Or the fusion warheads? Him keep talking, Captain Vasquez said. Knowledge is power. The less he knows, the better for us. The alien commander was really warming up now. Their shields are probably simple energy barriers. Their armor is basic metal plating. One shot. From our plasma cannons, we'll cut through their hull like paper. More ships arrived to watch. Aye! The crowd was growing. Dexelar felt the excitement building. This would be remembered across the galaxy. The day the Zephyrians showed the humans their place. I will give you one final chance, human captain. He broadcast directly to the Steadfast. Surrender now, and submit to boarding. Your ship will be impounded, and your crew questioned. Refuse, and I will demonstrate why the Zephyrian Empire rules this sector of space. Captain Vasquez looked at her crew one more time. They were ready. Chen had her hand on the weapons controls. Martinez was monitoring the power systems. Park was tracking every ship in the area. They had done this dance before. She pressed the communication button. Her voice was calm and steady. Commander Dexelar, I have already given you our answer. We are on a peaceful mission through neutral space. We request safe passage to continue our journey. Peaceful? Dexelar laughed. There is no peace for those who defy Zephyrian authority. You will learn that your primitive ship is no match for superior technology. He turned to his weapons officer. Charge all plasma batteries. Arm quantum torpedoes. Prepare to show these humans what real firepower looks like. The dominant Pride began to glow as its weapon systems came online. Blue energy ran along its hull like lightning. The ship was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Every alien who saw it felt pride or fear, depending on which side they were on. All ships stand witness, the Exlair announced. The Zephyrian Empire does not tolerate disrespect. This human rust bucket will burn, and its crew will beg for mercy. Captain Vasquez heard every word. She had heard threats like this before, from enemies far more dangerous than this young alien commander. She looked at the beautiful ship on her screen and thought about all the beautiful ships the Steadfast had faced over the years. Chen, she said quietly, bring our systems online, slowly and quietly. Yes, Captain Chen replied. Her fingers moved over her controls with practiced skill. Martinez, how's our power? Plenty to spare, Captain. Reactors are purring like kittens. Vasquez smiled slightly. The alien commander thought he was about to teach the humans a lesson. He had no idea that he was about to get one himself. Commander the Exelar raised his hand high in the air. The bridge of the dominant Pride was silent except for the hum of charging weapons. Every eye was on their young commander. He was about to show the galaxy the power of Zephyrian technology. Fire! Warning shots, he commanded. Let them see what they face. A bright blue plasma bolt shot out from the alien ship. They passed close to the Steadfast, lighting up space around the old human vessel. The bolts were beautiful and deadly, leaving glowing trails in the darkness. Any normal ship would have been badly damaged just from being near them. The human ship did not move, sat in space like nothing had happened. Dexelar frowned. He had expected the humans to panic or beg for mercy. Instead, their ship just floated there as calm as before. On his screen, he could see the human bridge. The crew was working at their stations like this was just another day. Perhaps they did not understand, his weapons officer suggested. Humans are primitive. They may not recognize superior firepower when they see it. Then we will make it clear, Dexelar said. His anger was growing. How dare they ignore his warning? Target their engine section. 50% power. We will disable them and drag them home. The dominant Pride's main guns swiveled toward the human ship. Energy built up in the weapon chambers until they glowed white hot. The alien crew watched. Their displays with excitement. This would be easy, Fire Dexelar ordered. 3 massive plasma bolts lanced out toward the Steadfast. They hit the old ship dead center, exactly where the Excelor had aimed them. Brilliant light-filled space as the weapons struck home. The watching ships saw the explosion and waited for the human vessel to break apart. But when the light faded, the Steadfast was still there. Her shields had absorbed the entire attack. They glowed softly around the ship like a second skin, completely undamaged. Dexler stared at his screen. That was impossible. His weapons should have cut through any primitive human shields like they were made of paper. He turned to his weapons officer. "Sensors show no damage, sir," the officer reported. His voice was confused. "Their shields held completely." "Impossible," Dexler snapped. "Increase power to 75%. Fire again. It's times 6. Plasma bolts hit the human ship. Explosion was even brighter, lighting up every vessel in the area. Surely no ship could survive that much firepower. The aliens waited for debris and escape pods. The Steadfast emerged from the blast completely untouched. Her shields had not even flickered. On the human bridge, Captain Vasquez watched the alien. Weapons hit her ship. The lights dimmed slightly as the shields absorbed the energy, then returned to normal. She looked at Martinez. "How are we doing, Chief?" "Shields at 98%, Captain," Martinez replied with a grin. "These kids hit about as hard as a light rain." "Dude." Chen looked up from her weapons console. "Captain, they're plasma weapons. Are designed to fight other energy-based systems. Our gravitational shields work on completely different principles. They might as well be throwing rocks at us." Vasquez nodded. The Steadfast had been built during humanity's darkest war, when survival meant everything. Every system on the ship had been designed by people who knew that losing meant extinction. The aliens had no idea what they were really facing. "Chen, bring our engines online. Full power." "Yes, Captain." The old human ship suddenly moved. She accelerated faster than any ship her size should have been able to move. The aliens watched in shock as the rust bucket they had been mocking shot forward like a bullet. "How are they moving so fast?" Exceler demanded. "Their engines should be primitive fusion drives." The science officer checked his readings twice. Before answering, "Sir, I'm detecting massive energy signatures from their engine section. But the design doesn't match anything in our databases." The Steadfast moved with impossible grace for such an old ship. She turned and twisted through space like a fighter instead of a heavy cruiser. The watching vessels could hardly believe what they were seeing. "Sir," the weapons officer said nervously. "They're targeting us." Vexillar looked at his screen. The human ship had turned toward them and was accelerating fast. He could see weapon ports opening along her hull. They looked different from any weapons he had seen before. Instead of the smooth energy weapon ports of civilized ships, these were rough holes that looked almost primitive. "Their weapons are coming online," his tactical officer reported. "But sir, they're not energy weapons. They appear to be some kind of projectile system." Dexlar laughed. His fear was replaced by amusement. "Projectile weapons? Against our shields? They might as well throw stones at us." He opened a channel to the human ship. "Foolish humans, your primitive guns cannot harm us. We have quantum shields that can stop any physical projectile. Surrender now before you embarrass yourselves further." Captain Vasquez pressed her communication button. Her voice was calm as always. "Chen, show them what obsolete means." The human ship's guns fired, but these were not the simple projectile weapons the aliens expected. These were magnetic railguns that accelerated metal slugs to a significant fraction of light speed. The projectiles hit the alien ship's shields and passed right through them like they were not there. The dominant Pride shook as the metal slugs tore into her hull. Sparks flew across the alien bridge as systems overloaded. Alarm sirens began to wail. "Impossible," Vexler shouted. "Nothing can penetrate our shields." His science officer was frantically checking his instruments. "Sir, their projectiles are moving too fast for our shields to stop. The quantum field can't form fast enough to block them." More railgun shots hit the alien ship. Each one punched clean holes through the beautiful hull. The Zephyrians had built their ship to fight other energy weapon users they had never faced. Kinetic weapons fired at such incredible speeds. Return fire, Vexillar ordered. All weapons. The dominant pride unleashed everything she had. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and quantum torpedoes all struck the human ship at once. The explosion was so bright it hurt to look at. When the light faded, the Steadfast was still there. Her shields had absorbed the entire attack and were already back to full strength. Her shields are adapting, the alien tactical officer reported in a shaking voice. Each attack makes them stronger. The Xalars stared at the human ship in growing horror. This was not supposed to happen. The humans were supposed to be weak and primitive. Their ship was supposed to be easy prey. Instead, his beautiful cruiser was being torn apart by weapons he didn't understand. Captain Vasquez opened a channel. Commander, this is your final warning. Stand down your weapons and withdraw. Never, the Exeter screamed. We are Zephyrians. We do not surrender to primitives. Captain Vasquez looked at her crew. It tried to avoid this fight. Now they would finish it. Chen, she said quietly, disable their engines. Chen's fingers moved across her weapons console with deadly precision. She had been waiting for this moment since the alien commander started his threats. The targeting computer locked onto the dominant Pride's engine section. Was beautiful, but beauty meant nothing when you were fighting for your life. Firing, Chen said calmly. 4 railgun shots streaked across space. They hit the alien ship's engines with perfect accuracy. Metal and sparks flew from the impact points. The beautiful blue glow of the Zephyrian engines flickered and died. The dominant Pride went dark except for emergency lighting. Commander Vexillar was thrown from his command chair as his ship shuddered. Emergency alarms screamed throughout the bridge. Red warning lights flashed everywhere. His beautiful, perfect ship was dying around him. Engine room report, he shouted. Sir, main engines are destroyed, came the panicked reply. We have no power to the drive systems. We're dead in space. Vexillar stared at the human ship on his screen. The old rust bucket had not moved. She just sat there in space like a patient predator. He could not understand how this was happening. His ship was new and advanced. The humans were supposed to be primitive. Weapons, fire everything we have left, he ordered desperately. Sir, most of our weapons are offline. The humans hit our power distribution system, then use what we have. The remaining weapons on the dominant Pride fired at the human ship. Plasma bolts and particle beams struck the Steadfast shields. But now the alien crew could see something that filled them with terror. The human shields were learning. Each attack made them stronger and more efficient. Captain Vasquez watched. The alien weapons bounced harmlessly off her ship. She turned to Martinez. Chief, show them our point defense system. Martinez grinned. With pleasure, Captain. The Steadfast suddenly came alive with defensive fire. Small turrets emerged from hidden ports all along her hull. They moved with impossible speed and accuracy. When the aliens fired their next volley of missiles, the human point defense system turned every single one into scrap metal before they could reach their target. The watching ships saw it all. They had come to see the humans humbled, but instead they were witnessing something that would give them nightmares. The old human ship was not just defeating the aliens, she was doing it with casual ease. Sir, the alien tactical officer whispered. Their defensive systems are beyond anything in our databases. They're tracking and destroying targets faster than our computers can count them. Vexillar felt fear creeping into his heart. This was not supposed to happen. Zephyrians were the superior race. Their technology was the most advanced in the galaxy. How could these newcomers be so much better? Captain Vasquez opened a communication channel. Her voice was calm and professional. Commander Vexillar, you are now disabled and defenseless. Do you wish to surrender? Never. Vexillar screamed, but his voice cracked with fear. We are Zephyrians. We do not surrender to inferior species. As you wish, Vasquez replied. She turned to Chen. Target their weapon systems. One at a time. Let them watch. What followed was a perfect demonstration of surgical warfare. Steadfast guns fired with impossible accuracy. Each shot destroyed exactly one weapon system on the alien ship. The humans were not trying to kill the aliens. They were teaching them a lesson. One by one, the dominant pride's weapons died. Plasma cannons, particle beam arrays, missile launchers, all of them turned into twisted metal under the precise fire of the human guns. The alien crew could only watch in horror as their ship was systematically dismantled. "They're not even trying to destroy us," the alien weapons officer said in a shaking voice. "They could kill us all, but they're just ... playing with us." Vexillor realized the horrible truth. The humans were holding back. They could have destroyed his ship in the first few seconds of the fight. Instead, they were showing him exactly how outmatched he was. Every shot was a message. Every destroyed system was a lesson. The watching ships began to move away. Some of them were already jumping to hyperspace. Word would spread across the galaxy within hours. Everyone would know. What happened here? The proud Zephyrian Empire had been humbled by an old human ship. "Sir," his communication officer said quietly, "we're receiving surrender requests from our own fleet vessels in the area. They want permission to withdraw." The XLR looked around his ruined bridge. Half his crew was wounded. His beautiful ship was a floating wreck. The humans had done all this without even trying hard. He thought about all his boasts and threats, thought about how he had called them primitive and weak. Captain Martinez said on the human bridge, "Their life support is failing. Should we offer assistance?" Captain Vasquez considered this. She could let the aliens die. They had started this fight. It threatened her ship and crew. That was not the human way. Humans fought to protect, not to destroy. "Open a channel to their ship," she ordered. "Commander Vexillor," she said when the connection was made, "we detect that your life support systems are failing. We can provide emergency power to keep your crew alive." The alien commander stared at her image on his screen. She was offering to help him after he had tried to destroy her ship. He did not understand this strange human concept of mercy. "Why?" he whispered. "Why would you help us?" "Because we're not monsters," Vasquez replied simply. "We fight when we have to, but we don't kill when we don't have to." A beam of energy reached out from the Steadfast to the alien ship. It connected to the dominant Pride's power grid and began feeding electricity into the failing systems. The emergency lights stopped flashing. The air circulation systems came back online. Ayler felt tears on his face. These humans, who he had called primitive and weak, were saving his life and the lives of his crew. They had defeated him completely, and now they were showing him kindness. "I don't understand," he said. "We attacked you. We tried to destroy you. Why do you help us?" Captain Vasquez looked at him with something that might have been pity. "Commander, you attacked us because you thought we were weak. You learned that we are not. Oh, you're learning something else about humans. We believe that strength should be used to protect, not to destroy." She paused and looked around his ruined bridge. "Your ship will be repaired enough to reach port. Your crew will survive. But you need to understand something. The Steadfast is 40 years old. She's not even one of our newer ships. She's what we call obsolete." Vexillor felt his blood turn cold. If this was an obsolete human ship, what were their new ones like? "Tell your empire what you learned here today," Vasquez continued. "Humans don't start fights, but we finish them. We don't look for trouble, but we're ready when trouble finds us." The communication ended. Vexillor sat in his command chair and stared at the human ship. She looked the same as before. It's old, worn, patched, and scarred. But now he knew the truth. Those scars were not signs of weakness. They were proof of survival. Each patch told a story of a battle won. Each dent was a lesson learned. The Steadfast had not just defeated him, she had educated him. And the lesson was one he would never forget. Captain Vasquez stood up from her command chair and walked to the main screen. The alien ship hung in space before them, broken and powerless. Emergency lights flickered along its hull. She could have destroyed it completely. One more shot from Chen's guns would have ended everything. But that was not why humans fought. She pressed the communication button. "Commander Vexillor, this is Captain Vasquez. Can you hear me?" The alien commander's face appeared on screen. His proud scales had lost their bright color. His perfect uniform was torn and dirty. Blood ran from a cut on his forehead. but his eyes were the most changed thing about him. The arrogance was gone. In its place was something new. Understanding, perhaps? Or maybe just fear. "I hear you, Captain," he said quietly. "Good. I want to make sure you understand what happened here today. Not just for you, but for everyone who's watching." Vasquez knew that ships were still gathered. Around them, some had moved away, but others remained. They were recording everything. This conversation would be played across the galaxy within hours. She wanted to make sure the message was clear. "You attacked my ship because you thought we were weak," she continued. "You saw our old hull and our patched armor, and you decided we were easy prey. You made the same mistake that many others have made." Vexillar said nothing. He just listened. "Steadfast is 40 years old, Commander. She was built during the Hegemony War, when humanity faced extinction." "You know what that means?" "No," Vexillar whispered. "It means she was built by people who knew that failure meant death. Not just their own death, but the death of every human in the galaxy. Every system on this ship was designed by survivors. Every weapon was tested in battles where losing was not an option." Captain Vasquez walked closer to the screen. Her weathered face filled the view. "You see scars and patches on our hull. We see lessons learned and battles won. Every mark on this ship tells a story of something that tried to kill us and failed." Martinez stepped up beside his captain. "The fusion reactors that power our shields. We learned to build those after enemy plasma weapons burned through 6 different types of armor. The railguns that destroyed your weapons, we developed those because energy weapons were not reliable enough when your life depended on them." Chen joined them at the screen. "Our point defense system can track and destroy 1,000 targets at once because we fought enemies who fired 10,000 missiles at a time. Our shields adapt because we faced weapons that changed with every shot." Lieutenant Park looked up from his station. "Our engines can outrun anything because running away was often the only way to live long enough to fight another day." Captain Vasquez nodded. "Every human ship is built with one purpose, Commander: to bring our people home alive. We don't build ships to look impressive or to show off our wealth. We build them to survive." She paused and looked directly into the alien commander's eyes. "The Steadfast has fought in 37 major battles. She has been boarded 6 times, rammed twice, and hit by weapons that don't exist anymore because we destroyed the species that made them. She has been to places where the stars themselves were weapons and back again." Vexillar felt a chill run down his spine. He was beginning to understand what he had really faced today. This was not just an old ship. This was a veteran of wars. He could not imagine. "How many ships has she destroyed?" he asked quietly. "We don't keep count," Vasquez replied. "We fight to protect, not to conquer. But if you're asking how many enemies thought they could defeat her because she looked old and weak, well, you're still alive to tell that story. Most of them are not." The captain turned to address all the watching ships. "Let me be clear to everyone listening. Humanity does not seek conflict. We prefer to trade and explore in peace. But we learned long ago that the galaxy is a dangerous place. We prepare for that danger," she gestured toward her ship. "The Steadfast is what we call obsolete. We have newer ships now, with better weapons and stronger shields. But even our oldest vessels are crewed by people who understand what war really means." Martinez spoke up again. "Every human ship captain has fought in real battles. Every engineer has kept engines running while under fire. Every weapons officer has had to make shots that decided whether their friends lived or died. Don't train in simulations," Chen added. "We learn from veterans who survived impossible odds. Every technique we use was paid for with blood and tested in actual combat." Captain Vasquez looked back at Commander Vexillar. "Your ship is beautiful, Commander. Yes. Your technology is impressive. Your crew is well trained. But you made one critical mistake." "What mistake?" Vexillar asked. "You thought that looking dangerous was the same as being dangerous. You thought that new was better than experienced. You thought that pretty was stronger than proven." She walked back to her command chair. "The Steadfast doesn't look dangerous, because she doesn't need to. Anyone with sense takes one look at our battle scars and keeps their distance. Only fools attack ships that are obviously veterans of real wars." Vexillar felt the weight of those words. He had been such a fool. He had seen the scars and patches as weakness when they were actually warnings. He'd attacked a veteran warship with an untested cruiser crewed by inexperienced officers. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now you go home," Vasquez said simply. "It's repair your ship, and you tell your people what you learned. You tell them that humans are not easy prey. You tell them that our old ships are old because they're too tough to kill." She pressed some buttons on her chair. "We're sending you enough power to get your engines working again. It won't be fast, but it will get you to the nearest port. Your crew will survive." "Why?" Vexler asked. "Why do you help us after what we did?" Captain Vasquez smiled slightly. "Because that's what humans do, Commander. We fight when we have to, but we'd rather make friends than enemies. Maybe next time we meet, you'll remember that." The power beam from the Steadfast reached out to the alien ship. Slowly, the dominant Pride's engines began to glow again. It would be a long, slow journey home, but they would make it, Commander Vasquez said as she prepared to end the communication. "One more thing. Tell your Empire that the Steadfast sends her regards. And tell them that if they want to test human resolve again, they should bring more ships. A lot more ships." The communication ended. The Steadfast turned away from the broken alien vessel and began to move toward the hyperspace jump point. She looked the same as when she had arrived. Old, scarred, and patched. But now everyone knew what those scars really meant. As the human ship prepared to jump to hyperspace, Captain Vasquez made one final announcement on open channels. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Earth ship Steadfast. To all vessels in this sector, we wish you safe travels and peaceful journeys. Stars are big enough for all of us." The old ship disappeared into hyperspace, leaving behind a broken alien cruiser and a lesson that would be remembered across the galaxy. Humans might look like easy targets, but appearances could be very deceiving indeed. Commander Vexila sat in his ruined bridge and watched the stars. He had a long journey ahead of him and a difficult report to write. But he was alive, and that was more than he had deserved. The humans had taught him that mercy was a strength, not a weakness. He would remember that lesson for the rest of his life.